because we're going to be making a big minestrone soup. And when you think about it, the word minestrone means that, just big soup, because this is a soup that has a lot of different vegetables in it. And I'm going to start with some onions in a little bit of olive oil. So you want to get, about 3 tablespoons of olive oil. Now, here's 2 carrots that I have just chopped up, and then I'm going to add some leeks. And now I like to use leeks in soup, but by no means are you limited to the vegetables I'm using today, because minestrone is something that comes from the creativity of your mind, and you can use just about any kind of vegetable that you have. Now this is a leek. That's pawdy in Italian, and I'm only going to use the white part. And did you know that leeks are members of the onion family? And sometimes they're very dirty, and I don't think people like to use leeks very often because they don't know what to do with them. Now you see that looks fairly clean, so I don't even have to wash this. So all I have to do is chop this. And what I want are 2 leeks. So there's one. I'm going to put that right in with my onions. And here's a little bit more. So now I have 2 leeks in there with my onions. And I want to stir that around a little bit and get that going. And now what I'm doing here is I'm making something the Italians call a sofrito. I'm frying up the vegetables in a little bit of oil, sort of to exude their flavor and get those vegetables soft a little bit. So now I can put in my carrots, so they go in. And then I want to put in, some celery. So here I've got just 2 stalks of celery that I've chopped up, and they can go in. And now if you want to put these vegetables in a dice, you can do that. You can make them even smaller, because then they'll cook in the broth a lot faster. So now I can turn my heat up a little bit and let that cook a little bit. Now, to this I'm going to be adding other things. Now I've got some potatoes, and here they are diced up in water. Now I have to drain those because I don't want that water, so I want to drain the water off. See, just like that. And then I'm going to have to dry these because I don't want that water on my potatoes when I put them in the olive oil. Let me get rid of that. Just dry them off. And now this is a wonderful thing to have in the wintertime, of course, a minestrone soup. And so we're going to be adding a little bit of basil to this soup, but not immediately. But we have to start the process a little bit, you see. So I want to get my basil leaves out there so you can just look at those and try to smell them. And I'm going to be making a sauce with that. Now while my vegetables are cooking, I should tell you we have to do one other thing. We have to put some beans in. And here I've got some, just navy beans, but you could use cannellini beans or white kidney beans. And what you want to do is soak, about a cup of them in cold water, just like that. Let them stay overnight, and then the next day they'll plump up some, and then you're going to want to cook them. Drain off that water, get out some cold water, put them in a pot, and cook them until they're not quite done. You want them to be still hard, al dente, because you're going to be putting these back in the soup. So they're still a little bit al dente, but those are ready to go in. So I can put those in. In they go, the beans. And now, one other thing, I've got to put in eggplant. And here I've got a nice big fat eggplant that I've just diced up, took the skin off. In that goes. So now you can start to see this is going to become a very big soup. Now I just want that to cook down a little bit, and I'm going to come back to that. Now what about the basil? Well, this is a mortar, and this is a pestle. And then you want to add a little bit of coarse salt, you see? And then you want to add a clove of fresh garlic. So I'm just going to chop that up a little bit because that's a big clove of garlic. And now you get that in, and then you get into this. And I mean, you've got to stand here now and pound this down. And what you want to do is get these leaves into a pulp. Some chicken broth. And that looks good. And I'm using homemade chicken broth. And this is about 2 cups. And you want it hot when it goes in so it doesn't reduce the heat of the vegetables in the pot. So 2 cups of homemade chicken broth. And if you have to use canned, I'm not even going to answer that one. And in go 4 cups of boiling water. And then you want to add, just a little bit of salt and pepper, and that's all going to cook down very nicely. So let me bring that over. So now a little bit of, I like to use coarse salt. I just think that gives a much nicer flavor. Did you know there are more nutrients in coarse salt than there is in regular? And some coarse black pepper. And that looks very good already. And now I want to add, tomatoes. I almost forgot. That gives it a nice color. So, you want a couple of tomatoes, and sometimes I use, I like to use plum tomatoes. I prefer to use plum tomatoes as opposed to beefsteak, but I'm on a budget today, and I don't have plum tomatoes, so I'm using these. But this is a big soup, so we can't help it if we're a little messy. And the rest of that, and I think I can pick this up and throw it in, and this one, you didn't even see that, did you? Okay, and now I got to wipe my hands. And now I think I can add my other vegetables, because there's still more to put in this soup, because this is still a big soup. So here I've got, a cup and a half of cabbage. And really, if you're making a minestrone, one of the things that's important to put in it are green types of vegetables. So that's why that's going in. And of course, every kid loves spinach. So we've got about a cup and a half of spinach. And of course, you see, I'm putting these in last now because they're not going to take as long to cook. And here's some zucchini that's been diced up small. That's another cup and a half. So in that goes. So then give that a nice stir. Stir that around. And now with these added vegetables, this is probably going to take not too much longer to cook because they're going to cook down rather quickly. And you see how beautiful this is starting to look now. And here I've got, vermicelli. And now you can use this, or you could use something called stelline, which are little stars. You could use a tubular pasta if you wanted, a ditalini. And you put this in raw, and you just want to break the pasta up, you see, in small pieces like that. And the reason that you do that is you want that to cook in the same amount of time that it's going to take those vegetables that you just added to the cooking pot to cook. So you want all this to cook about the same time, and you don't want the pasta to be mushy. In Italian cooking, pasta should be al dente. So now mix that up well. And if you see that your soup is maybe a little too thick, you could always add a little extra broth to this, but I don't think mine needs it. So now the cover goes back on that, and that's cooking. And now to finish off the pesto, you've got to add cheese to this. So now to do that, you want to grate up some cheese. And now you can use either Romano totally, or you can use Romano and Parmesan cheese. And you want about 3 tablespoons. Bring over your other cheese. Here's my Romano. And now what you want to do is start adding some of the cheese, a little bit of the Parmesan, a little bit of the Romano, and work that in. Here are my pine nuts, and you want, about 3 tablespoons of those. So in they go. And you continue to use your pestle to get this all incorporated, you see. You want to add some extra virgin olive oil. And you do that, a little bit at a time. You probably want a half a cup of extra virgin olive oil for the 1.5 cups of packed leaves that I started out with. So continue on like this. You see, and now it's starting to get there, but it isn't there yet. So let me show you what a finished one would look like. Here's one that's done. And you see, let me get a clean spoon here. When you let pesto sit around, it starts to get a little brown on top, you see. But look at that beautiful color. And now that sauce is all ready to use. And I'm just going to give that a little taste test myself. Definitely tastes like pesto to me. Wonderful flavor of basil leaves. So now, let me see what my soup is doing, because I think that that's just about ready. Yep, I think this may be ready. Let me just check it and see. Yes, my pasta is nicely cooked. So now it's time for the kingly touch, because that's what basil means. And I'm going to put 3 heaping tablespoons in that. And that's what gives it It's Genovese character.